It's time to check your money with your friendly neighborhood advisor, Mike Jennings, a wealth advisor with Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Hey, Mike, what you got going on this week?
This week, we're talking about some pretty good stuff. And I think we talked about it last time, but I think the fall is officially here. I stepped outside and
Mm.
I was real lucky to have my jacket on. It wasn't the usual walk outside sweating, have to worry about changing my shirt halfway through the day. It's really here.
Listen, I'm not mad, and summer could come back anytime as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think this might be a long shot. But so last episode we were pretty heavy into some financial and economic topics concerning, the Federal Reserve and things like that. This week I wanted to rein it in a little bit, but
Okay.
also talk about something that I believe all of us can relate to, and that is the emotional, psychological aspect of finances.
Hmm.
Now, I was reading this article earlier this week, and I think I was introduced or maybe reminded of a profession that I may have heard of before in passing or saw somewhere, but when I saw it again, it made all the sense in the world to me, and that is a certified financial therapist. Have you ever heard of such a thing, George?
I have not. This is fascinating to me.
Yes, and we're gonna get into why. But we talk about finances so much and financial issues, of course, but we haven't really focused on how important your emotional well-being and your personal relationship with money affects you. Money isn't everything, but obviously living in a capitalist society, it definitely concerns nearly everything. And because we have this reliance on money and finances, it can have a pretty major impact on our emotional status and vice versa, right? Our emotions can also play into our finances. So I just wanted to, dive into that this week. Is that cool with you, George?
It's cool with me. Let's go.
All right, let's go. So to start off, I was reading this article um, about money and personal relationships. So let me just throw some stats at you, George, and I want to get your opinion on them. So in a survey of 2,000 American adults, 36% said that they have lost a friendship over money.
Hmm.
40% reported having experiencing tension with friends over money, and nearly a third, 33%, felt pressure to keep up with friends in their spending habits. But despite all of that, 77% of people in another survey have said that they have lent money to friends and family before. So, George, what's your take on this and the idea of losing friends and personal relationships over money?
It can be tough. I mean, the thing that struck out to me in what you said was the idea of keeping up with the Joneses,
Yes,
right?
I thought that exact
Yeah,
phrase when I
keeping
was
up with the
reading that.
Joneses, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Yep.
it's tricky, right? Because I would also add family members because you
Yes.
when you're dealing with family members, there's an expectation, right? And I know for parents, it's very interesting because parents they have to expect that they're not gonna actually get what they're supposed to get back when they're supposed to get it. Unfortunately, right? But
Hmm.
also at the same time, it's about I don't think I've lost friendships. I've probably been the friend that you waiting on, but I don't think I've lost any friendships over it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And all of those stats, they're very understandable and none of them are surprising to me. I actually think that they might have lowballed some of the some of the things here. They weren't asking the right people. I could think of so many people offhand or people that I know of who've gotten into it with friends and family over money.
I
Uh,
think where it gets really tricky is when it depends on the amount of money,
yeah,
right? So,
that's
like
true.
if you're helping somebody with their rent or something like significant like that,
Hmm.
or it's a business deal, things are like that. That's where I think it gets a
Right.
little tricky.
Uh-huh, yep, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but that plays into the whole theme of this week is you know like you said, the amount, right? $50 to some people is like, all right, cool, whatever, I'll lend that to you. Now jump up to 500. Now you might even less people are going to be like, all right, I might need that back, and now bump that up to 5,000, or you start getting into those ranges. Now you're testing the waters a little bit more now. So I guess what's your general philosophy with money between friends and family? And I know some people have that very distinction, but some people you got very, very close friends that you consider family. So sometimes it's interchangeable. But what's your philosophy? Are you okay with lending money to people, or are you okay with even asking for money if in certain situations you might have experienced before? What's your take?
It depends on the situation
Yeah.
that I'm in on terms of the ask. On the other hand, I think if I got it and I can do it, I
Hmm.
will do it.
Yeah.
And then the expectation is a repayment also depends on whether I will do it. You feel me? So
Right.
if I'm not sweating and I'm doing it, I'm not gonna. But if I know that I gotta have it and I don't know if you're gonna get it back to me, then I may have to question that. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at. What about you?
That may I'm the same. It's family, and I have a big family, so I can't take too many requests at one time. But family, people that you have a long-standing relationship with, very, very close friends that I consider, friends, family, siblings, and things like that. It's almost what you said. If I can help, then more than likely I'm going to help.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that caveat that I'm gonna bring up a little bit later, but I want to get into one more thing. But remind me of that. So with everything that you said and I said, I think there's also definitely a generational thing that we have to look at. So and then another survey. 61% of Gen Z and 70% of millennials said borrowing money from friends is a common practice. Borrowing or lending money from friends is a common practice, compared to 38% of boomers who said that's a common practice. Is
Mm-hmm.
that do you agree with that? Do you think people of an older generation they're not really feeling the lending money, or maybe are they more strict with things? What do you think?
I think they're more strict, but I think they definitely lend money.
Do you
But I
think
just
they
think they're a little bit stricter. I do.
Yep. So just thinking about why this is probably not a good idea, a lot of the times, right? I mean, the biggest reason is that rarely do loans to friends or family come with those strict terms, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a cousin that you lent money to and you were like, all right, just pay me back when you get it back, or next month or by this date, and because if you go to a bank and you get a loan, it's going to come with a novel of terms and conditions and things like that. You're not going to write out a contract
Right.
for, a truth and lending statement with your cousin down the street. Now you're going to be down in front of grandma's house boxing because they didn't get you the money back, right? And so what I was going to say, that caveat, right? So there's that old saying, and it's don't lend money you can't afford to lose.
Thank you. Right. I kind of said that, right?
You did pretty much. And so all these scenarios can play out in so many different ways because everyone doesn't view money the same. So while you may be stressing over what you lent away, the person who borrowed it, they might be a little bit more relaxed about it than you want them to be, right? And this brings us back to this concept of, this idea of the certified financial therapist. And I say it makes sense because to me, I have found myself putting on that therapist hat many a time during meetings with clients, and I'm
Right,
sure
right,
Vicky spoke about that as well too. And of course, we're not trained therapists of any kind, but it goes to show the point that money is deeply integrated in everything that we do and can evoke all sorts of emotions. When you speak about that, so that's something that as a financial planner, I'm always prepared for. Um, I'm prepared for that when talking to people about their finances, and that's something you gotta be aware of, right? But getting into this like this actual certified role, right? I wanted to see how do they approach things, and how do they, what's their philosophy? How do they approach someone in talking about these things? So apparently, certified financial therapists, they go through specified training to help people who have been or anticipate being affected by certain financial decisions or in
Hmm.
how they view money in general. And that can come across, like I said, in so many different ways. People who spend too much money, then they're probably doing it out of anxiety, or people who are overly frugal, and that may come from, a past of not having enough, and, people who refuse to spend their money or invest in certain things, right? And that's pretty common, especially these days. People, they let their wallet speak for them, right? We were just talking about Target and Disney last week, I believe, right? And some of the things they were going through. Um, Also people who are in trusted positions for family members and their finances. So you could think of that as like estate planning, being an executor for a family member or a friend who passed away, or just helping people who can't help themselves, people who are going through long-term care situations. So many different ways that all of these emotional issues can manifest in finances. And one of the biggest causes that one of these therapists, certified financial therapists, specifically named was the financial aspect of generational trauma, right?
Hmm.
And George, we talk about that. We just between the two of us, we talk about that all the time and how it affects our community in so many different ways. But specifically in the financial aspect is a very interesting way to look at it. So just like what does that mean? How does that come about? So just think about like the societal factors like poverty, systemic racism, right? The racial wealth gap, the pay gap between men and women, which is still a thing in between related fields. Personal factors like watching how your parents handled money, growing up with not having enough and how that affects whether you overspend or underspend. We went through that with a client of ours who was very, very, I guess I think we spoke about it on here, that financial anxiety of like, I'm gonna spend, I'm gonna try to do the right thing, but like, you can pay me to pull up that bank app and see what I'm really spending my money on, right? And that's such a prevalent issue these days. Other things like going through things like a divorce, going through a split, child support, alimony, even going through like an accident, and how that affects your ability to work, and whether you're waiting on settlements and things like that. There's so many different ways, and um, some things that you might additionally go through because of these issues, right? So, not having or not thinking that you have enough money, you might go and get another job. Now you're overworking, you're getting burnt out. You putting a strain on your other personal relationships with your friends, your wife or your spouse. Spending too much or too little, even when it comes to essential things. It's like, it's one thing to, be tight with your wallet on, going out on spending on entertainment, but, you don't want to do that same thing when it comes to things like rent or your mortgage or utilities. And you don't want to, you don't want to say, all right, I'll get the light bill next month. No,
You don't want to do
you don't want
that.
to do that. And especially these days, National Grid, they'll be at your door. They'll
but
be
there,
right at your door.
but your point is that there are people who are actually trained to to deal with stuff like this.
And trained to deal with it. And the reason why it's so important is these issues, they might seem minor, and I think very rarely is one person or, your average person going through just one of these things. Um, Obviously, with so many different ways that they could manifest, you could be getting hit with all of these from all different angles, all different times of the day, every day. Um, and it's really things like that that can derail a financial plan in no time, right? You think about it from my perspective, right? My job is to put together a financial plan, a roadmap from where you are today to where you want to be in life. Going through every step, looking at it from every financial angle possible. Now, again, maybe it comes with experience. Vicky, she's been in this position for a long time. I've gotten my feet wet a little bit, and especially having her as a mentor, some of the
Mm-hmm.
people I've been able to speak to and meet with, definitely helps. But coming from that experience, we can kind of talk to somebody and start to see little patterns and see how they talk about certain things or how they interact with each other. If it's a couple, we can pick up on things like that. But really our overall job is to create this financial plan. Now, if you're dealing with a planner who just does that and they're not really focused on these emotional things, you know, what's the point? You're gonna put this plan together and not recognize that you have somebody sitting in front of you who is too anxious to open up their bank account app. They're not, they don't want to look up the different financial documents. They don't want to get the things to you, the things that you actually need to put together a coherent, comprehensive plan. These are things that are going to wipe that plan out in no time at all. So, if these are issues that, you are familiar with, or someone that you care about and who may be going through things like this or whatever the case may be, don't hesitate to offer help to them. And also, asking for help is one of the hardest things that you can do. So as a community, we have to learn to lean on each other as a community and,
Mm-hmm.
understand that there are people around you who are in these dedicated professions to help with these things, right? You're only as alone as you want to be. And again, one of the biggest things Vicky and I provide for our clients is literally just peace of mind, and knowing that someone qualified is keeping an eye on you and your situation too. And very clearly, there's space now for um, uh, people such as certified financial therapists, right? Now you're taking that emotional, that psychological aspect, and you're taking the financial aspect and you're melding the two together. And that's exactly what we need, especially these days, because it's hard to turn on the news and see something financially related or not that's not gonna, give you that little oh, that give you the ick, as they say. So with that, please give your friendly neighborhood advisor a call at 315-748-5540. Again, that's 315-748-5540, or send me a quick note at michael.jennings@brackensfsn.com.
Mike Jennings is a wealth advisor with Brackens Financial Solutions Network LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. He is your friendly neighborhood advisor.